this is how we got to start. We're going to start with Severan. We've got the Severan King here.
Thank
This
you.
is definitely a Severan moment.
Yeah.
You're good?
We could have a top. We top yourself.
Let's top you up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, brother. Chin chin.
We've been looking forward to this. Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. It's overdue.
Been 100% looking forward to this. We got my good friend for the next Cap Table Talks, the Severan King. I call him, absolute pioneer in the music business. Now moving into sports. We've actually been into the sports business for a long time. True innovator, true icon in our culture. And anybody who goes by one name, you know that they're a big deal. We got
That's a fact.
my good friend Dumi in the building. What's happening, Dum?
Mr. Forbes, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Obviously, that's an amazing intro coming from yourself, who I highly respect. Yeah, mate, I'm here. We're here.
You're good?
We're here.
Of course, we've got Leash
we're
as well with us today.
How you doing, Leash?
Good.
Amazing, Leash.
This could take 3 hours.
It could.
This could absolutely take 3 hours. There's
Definitely.
so many places to go. And there's a lot of things happening in our culture right now, positive things happening in our culture, which if Dumi isn't the originator and instigator of, he's had an influence in it somewhere along the way, right? So music, artist management, some of the music we've grown up listening to, some of the artists we've come to love, has created some of the music managers that we see now and the way that they do things, some of the way sports people are managed. Again, Dumi's had a.
I've only started that.
And now we're in the drinks business, something we're doing together. So
Yes.
it's going to be an interesting conversation. South Londoner.
Yes.
And we met recently, which is
I know, it's
weird.
so crazy.
It's weird because the
We know so many
intertwine,
people. We
right,
know, like,
of people.
it's ridiculous, but maybe that's how God meant for it to happen in the way we met each other. And big up Carl.
Loco's the reason.
Loco is the reason. Although there's so many people now that are just like, Demi, I was meaning to introduce you to Dean. I'm like, but you didn't. Carl did.
Carl did, yeah.
Carl did. But you know what? Yeah, at the end of the day, we've probably lived a kind of parallel life, South London boys.
Yeah.
And I feel where we grow up, especially in South London, is it's a great place to grow up because I feel we've got a kind of a mix of it's a mix of people that you grow up with in South London. It's not as segregated as a lot of other
Parts of London.
Mm-hmm.
When we were both at Carl's event, the Black Seed event, one of the things you said was about kind of your hustler mentality, and that to me is also kind of a South London thing. Like
100.
You built a lot of great businesses, supported a lot of great people, but that hustler mentality, like where is that from for you? Parents, friends, culture, like what is that?
I think again, it's like my dad's a businessman and has been very self-made. I've seen him start businesses. Like when I was younger, my dad was studying to be an accountant, and he was doing secretary work at the time. And then he got his qualifications, become an accountant. Then I saw him doing import and export. He was actually importing and exporting Guinness and Star and Golda beer. I saw him do it with my uncle Sylvester at the time. Then we owned a shop in Brockley. So I saw him have a shop, plus still doing other things, buying houses, renting out the houses. So when I was younger, I very much saw my dad literally making opportunities happen for himself, like working hard, thinking about things and going for it.
Right.
So I think, and I remember I used to hang around with him a lot when I was younger. And I remember in New Cross, my Uncle Davison lots of his friends had shops. Like my Uncle Davison had a shop in Deptford. One of my uncles, he was called Uncle Ike, he had a shop in like Deptford, New Cross. So I remember us going to different shops, and I used to see like black African men. They were immigrants, but they had their own business, but being part of the community. And I remember sitting down when I was younger and looking at them, and I just don't know, like, it's so strange. It's like I respected them. I was like, actually, I want to do this.
Right.
I can remember, I think them just holding their destiny in their own hands. Maybe I couldn't articulate it at the time, but there was just something about that kind of intrigued me.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then, and dealing with the community. But then when you grow up, we're from South London, lots of the people that were around me that were successful were hustlers, be it they're doing illegal activities, but these were the people that I could see that were
Getting on,
successful
right, they
and
were
getting money
successful,
and had the swag and were talking and looked the part, you know.
Right.
So you see that, you're influenced about that. So I think it's a combination. Then school, having to be, in school, being Nigerian, you have to be very academic.
Right. Strong pressure on
Academia. And I went to Haberdashers, which is in New Cross, which at that time was almost like, it's like a grammar school them times.
Yeah.
And my siblings were very academic. I'm not the most academic. I wasn't the most academic at the time, and I'm the first son.
Right.
I had to arrive. I had to be somewhere. I had to
deliver.
do something. I had to deliver because I didn't think I was gonna do well in uni, and I wasn't gonna get a degree. I didn't think I was gonna be kind of an academic. So I feel I
had to hustle your way to success somewhere. The thing about you, and it's something I love and I admire, and I talk about, and sometimes we joke about it, is you're one of these people who can be in any room. Any room. Like Dumi is one of few people, you can put Dumi in any room. You can put him in Buckingham Palace, you can put him in the CEO of Def Jam's room, you can put him with my man from LVMH, or you can put him in a block party on the Yellow Brick in Peckham. And Dumi's gonna hold court. Like you're gonna see a crowd of people around Dumi, and Dumi's gonna be, chopping up I think don't you think that is a skill and a bit unique for you?
You got strong emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel definitely, exactly. One thing I definitely do have, I have a higher level of respect for people. I don't believe wherever you're from, tomorrow, you don't know what tomorrow holds for the next man. So no matter where I'm interested in people's stories, where you're from, and I think I can learn from people. So since I actually do love learning, and I love listening to people's stories, and I love relationships and different types of relationships. I can actually have friends that I know, I would love you for who you are and know your worst, but love you for what I receive from you. You know what I mean? And what you give me, but I'm not going to judge you for what other people will say. But if your relationship is like how it is, and you stay consistent with our relationship and our rules of our relationship, I'm good.
Yeah. Would you say as well that you go off of energy? Because like you said, sometimes you don't always articulate yourself in the best way, or you're not looking for certain things, but you've been able to navigate, lots of different circles.
Yeah.
So I feel like perhaps it's the energy that you're attracting and aligning yourself with.
Yeah. When you're growing up, listen, we grow up, it's survival of the fittest where we grow up. You know what I mean?
In South London it is, yeah.
It is. It's survival of the fittest. And if you're weak, you get preyed on, yeah? And so some of my friends would be the toughest, or the person that can beat up everyone, or the person that can do... And I've realized I've never had a fight. But I didn't have to fight.
Yeah.
But I had respect from people. No one ever tried to rob me, or no one ever done anything, but I would have the person who's quote unquote the worst person likes me and I like them. They don't ever have to be threatening to me, and I'm never threatening to them. I realized people respond. For my dad always used to tell me, this is actually a fact. If you smile and you say hello, it disarms people.
Everybody I've spoken to about you, and my experience with you, has always been that, which I find intriguing because of the scale of success, right? And really your early prominence and big successes were music, right? Were music related. So it's good. Interesting to talk about how you got into that, because we're talking, for people that don't know, we're talking like tier 1 names. We're talking Jessie J, we're talking Wizkid, we're talking Tinie Tempah, amazing commercial success with Tinie. I mean, it's not, and you're such a humble guy, but these are like tier 1, national successes. So what do you think that humility and networking ability was key to that? And how did that come about? How did all that start?
At a certain point, I knew that I had the attributes to be successful. So these other things, when Tinie happened, that was through both of our hard work and belief, and it took time, but it was sacrifice. But if I didn't do that, I probably would have done something else.
Right.
Because I had the drive.
You had the drive, work ethic.
The work ethic, you know what I mean? So I wasn't going to let success define me, because I had to be successful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like, you know, when we grow up, you think 30 is old. So in your head, I'm thinking, I need to be successful before I'm 30. You don't even understand that pressure on your head, like, I need to be successful. So I know I'm going to work harder. I'm going to do everything harder than anyone. No one's going to work harder than me. Be it them times, remember, and we can be honest here, like, at the end of the day, when we're younger, we're coming up, I'm doing other things, but I'm realizing I'm actually successful in this. And then that comes with the same threats, because people see you on the street, oh, you're making money. Yeah, you may not have as much money as you have today, but we have the Rolex, you have the cars, you buy yourself a house. And then at the end of the day, people are looking at you like,
you've made it.
You've made it. So before I've been successful with tea, I've already had a level of, you could say it's not success, because when you think about it, but at that stage,
it was amazing.
But
how did it start with Tinie? Because you're related. So, and was he first?
Yeah, that's my first success. So like me and
how did it start?
I've said that so many times, but me and Tinie, that's my little cousin, but we're a couple years. How old is? I'm like 6 years older than T, and so in that generation of going to parties and stuff, you know, you miss. I'm not going to the parties anymore, so I don't even see him. So I'm at my mum's house, and then I met his mum, and I was like, "Oh, auntie, what are you doing?" She said, I said, "I'm starting to get into management," and she told me that, "Oh, your brother is into music," and I'm like, "Oh," she's like, "Oh, my son," and then I was like, "Okay, these times, you're doing your thing that a 21-year-old, 22-year-old's doing at that time." I was just trying to make money and trying to get into music, but just trying to be successful. And then she told me her son does music, and I was like, okay, cool. So one of our uncles is like literally like the equivalent of Dean. At the time, he was a consultant, like a doctor, a surgeon. May his soul rest in peace. Heart surgeon. He lived in a house in Sheem, a beautiful house, and he was having a party. And so I went with my mum, and T was there with his mum. I went with my mum and dad, and I met him, and I looked at him, I was like, okay, you know when you see a little kid, just like when I saw your son Dean, you can identify, oh, this is that nice little cousin, sweet, doing his thing, but you still think it's a little youth, but he's got mad potential, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, and he's like, oh, I'm doing music. Then I looked at his music, I was like, oh, he's actually good. I was working with the boys in Wandsworth Council at that time, it was around Roehampton. And I wanted them to see a young brother working in a youth club. Yeah, that's successful in that, but I'm coming into work all the time. And that was the one thing that I actually did like, because I was passionate about working. So why I'm just telling you so it aligns, at that time, if I didn't work in Wandsworth for Wandsworth Council, I wouldn't have known Grime existed.
Oh yeah?
Because remember, at that time, we're like 21, 22. I'm going to funky house parties. I'm going to China Whites. I'm in West.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to find out you're looking for the girls. Plus you're looking for where the money is, because it's a different lifestyle. Everyone's going West. You were probably there too, D. You know them times there. We'll be in the West them times. Yeah. So I wouldn't know what's Grime.
But because you were working for the council, you had the connection that gave you the connection to it, right?
Fridays, every Friday, I put out their decks. And then I start seeing the kids with their academics, they MC and on this tune. And then but I'm seeing the white boys, the black boys, everyone's dressing the same. The white boys are MCing. I'm like, whoa, these kids. They've got their own little, it's happening now, because remember before, we may have like one white friend amongst us, but these times the kids are speaking in the same slang that the white boys are talking in, the mixers with the Indian boys, the black boys, they're all merging. So I'm like, there's an identity for me, like something's happening. So on top of that, I'm seeing what's happening in the youth club, and then I'm watching Channel U. So I'm seeing it happening, and I'm seeing the content. So at this time, I'm thinking, something's happened. I need to get into this.
I'm picturing Eskimo dance just on a play for like 11 minutes straight, and everyone's just coming in battle after battle. Yeah. I used to MC back in the day.
It was that Eskimo.
Hold on, you MC'd?
What's that
Back in the day, yeah.
You know
Back in
that
school.
Wolf record, whatever?
Yeah, literally, yeah. That's the beat, and everyone's just coming in,
I was like,
freestyling as well.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's happening. So then, Dean, I started researching.
Right.
When I see an opportunity, I start understanding. I get obsessed with it, and it's like I'm in.
Right.
And so obsessed, and I start thinking, okay, I need to do this, that. And then obviously,
you're seeing it
I'm
emerging,
seeing it, and I'm
you've got
feeling
what, Tinie in the back of your
Tinie
mind.
in my back of my mind.
Right.
I'm saying, okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. We're going to the parties. We're going to paper these times. These times I'll be seeing Leon and stuff. That's how I know Leon. You know what I mean? I've known Leon from before. But we're probably in the same places. But them times there, we're going to the West End was popping these times. So I'm like, yeah, cool. I understand what our generation want, and what we like. At them time, it was all about aspirations. It's about making a beat, money,
looking the part,
looking the part, the cars, the whips, the watches, But these kids, they're all wearing academics and stuff and doing all of this stuff. We're not on that, but there needed to be someone that bridged that gap.
Yeah.
Was it a case of, did you guys sit down and go, right, we're going to plot this out over a long period, or did you just take step by step? Because we were talking earlier that a lot of kind of younger generation now, they want something quickly.
Overnight.
So did you plot and go, this is going to be a 5-year run, 6-year run, and this is how we're going to do it? Or were you just like arms around each other, step by step?
Pretty much arms around each other, step by step. And there was times in the process where obviously I stopped hustling because I wanted to just put everything into this. I remember these times I had my house. I remember I had to rent my house. I rented my house. I went back and lived with my mum. I sold my car. I got a smaller car. I got like a
focus on pushing time.
Music, because then I had an office in Greenwich. There was a level of fulfillment, like Dean. Like when we used to live in our house here, we had like 2 Volkswagen V5s outside, and these cars, they're not moving in the daytime, bro. I'm seeing my neighbours, they're going out I just wasn't, I'm like, and remember I've dropped out of uni, to hustle. When my parents are gonna start asking me questions soon. And yeah, you've got a house, but what does that mean? You've got more things to do, you know what I mean? And so I was just like, I wanted to go out 9 to 5. I wanted to start doing stuff. So I got the office and I built a studio, and then I would just go there 9 to 5 every day. I'll go there every day.
And get Tinie in there.
Tinie was in the studio, or I'll just be on the computer, I'll send emails. And every time I got a response, it'll be like I got paid. No trust. And then the more responses you were getting, I realized actually I'm onto something. So I just continued that, and we continued, and it built, and I'd read books, and then I was just like, by that time, so then obviously the most innovative thing that we did at that time was licensing the record to Parlophone at the time.
Okay.
Is people were signing direct. But I wouldn't say like licensing a record now, you understand that you get your masters back after a certain time, but I wouldn't say I had the vision to say, oh, we're going to be successful and we'll get our masters back. Right. It was more of, I understand what we need to do, and I want to have creative control, or we want to have creative control. So I was like, the only way we could have creative control is if they license it, then they have to go ask for approval on a lot of things. Right.
I can see the passion though, like even when you were speaking about like when you were hearing the music and how it made you feel, like I think there's a big difference between someone who wants to make money and someone who's doing something as well because they're passionate about it and they see you wanted to establish yourself as well. You wanted to have that foundation. So I think that plays a part.
Obviously, people always say there's a perception of me like, he's a hustler. He's about making money, doing this, doing that. I could be much, much, much more richer than I am. Like really, like seriously. I would say I'm a businessman. I am sharp in a sense, and I do know when I want something, I know how to do that, and I can get what I need from a situation. But you have to be like that, and you learn how to be like that in business. My approach in business is never about the money first.
Yeah.
It's always about how I approach it, because it won't even work. And lots of people will probably tell you I've walked away from a lot of money more than people will even imagine. Like some things that I've walked away from because of integrity and sometimes a bit of emotion, which I've learned in my older age that sometimes you don't have to be emotional about things. But if I was so money driven, I'd do much more.
What was the big moment with T? Like, what was the breakthrough moment there? And then what did it lead to? Like, who came next? Jesse, Wiz? Like,
Okay,
what
so
came next?
breakthrough moment with T was obviously Tinie signing his deal. And then, but the break was obviously Pass Out.
Yeah.
And I actually, you know what's so funny today? I was actually with Sylvia Rohn today, who's the chairperson of Epic. And I was even explaining to her, we were talking about the time when Pass Out was blowing up at the time. And obviously we licensed the record and it was blowing up. And I was getting loads of calls from the Americans, but I hadn't, our repertoire owner, and the repertoire owner is the person who owns your records in the territory. So our repertoire owner was obviously Parlophone, UK, right? So then they will have a sister company in America. So you would naturally go through your sister company in America. But I started getting calls from Interscope, Atlantic Records, loads of Epic Records.
Big American label.
Big American labels. And I was like, I went to America and I started doing the meetings. And then I was like to the Parlophone, I'm like, listen, I need to take this option out or I'm going to do a deal because this person's calling me, this person's doing it. And then he took Mars Leonard, who was the head of Parlophone. He took a flight over and then we signed our deal we took a meeting and we signed our deal with Capitol Records, which was a sister company in America. And Tinie doing that had the #3 Billboard record with Written in the Stars. Obviously, Pass Out went on to do millions of like streams and obviously physical sales at the time. But when I was just talking to, I was saying this to Silver today, I was like, life is really about, you have to be on ground and you have to understand. You can't I'd never leave my destiny in third person's hands. Never.
I talk to so many young people, right, and you probably do too, where in their heads, the environment they're in is the reason they can't be successful, right? It's the reason they can't thrive. And I always say to them, do you realize what an advantage you have? Like, you're going to go up against, and I go up against people all the time who haven't had to figure out body language in order to survive. The reason I'm so tuned into body language is because it was the difference between life and death in some situations. So I'm so in tune to it. Like, I see it so naturally and it helps me. And you have those skills. You're going to go up against a person who has learned how to interpret people by reading a book, right? Which is helpful, but I would rather have learned survival in survival mode than in academic mode. Because when the pressure is on, like you say, when the pressure is on, my instincts go to a different level to you know.
And I see Dean, like, it's so funny, like, I'll watch you kind of just pull back. You have to understand, like, sometimes how to just step out. Yeah. And I see you may not know that you naturally just do that.
I was talking to someone about this the other day and I was saying, particularly men, right? And particularly men from our culture, I think the mark of us and our progress is what we can step away from, right? To me, we're talking about how do you measure success and what are your definitions of and progress. And my thing is, especially as men, I think all people, but especially as men, your measure is what can you step away from, what can you turn down, right? So you spoke a minute ago about situations where you said, you know what, there's a lot of money on the table, but in order to participate in that, I've got to compromise some my integrity, I've got to compromise some of my values, and that's not right for me, right? That is a mark of a heavily advanced man in my opinion. Because it's one part financial, it's another part mental. To say my peace of mind, staying true to my values is more important than my money. You have to be at a certain moment, a certain level to do that. And that mentality has helped me with so much conflict where I go, you know what the flex is here? Do you know what like the bigger man move to do here? Do you know what the ultimate G move, bad man move to do here is go, I know you owe me I know it's a big number.
Hold it.
It's a big number to everybody else.
Hold it.
Keep it.
Keep it. Do you know what? Like, again, you can do it because you have 110, more than 110% confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
That you know that you can do it again.
My life's not going to be worse
off
because I stepped away from it.
And this is not, and I know this is not because it's Dean's successful Dean now. I know that this is Dean.
It's a character.
It's a character trait. Yeah. And that's is that. But look.
And it's not monetary either, right? Because people who aren't financially motivated can step away from big numbers because they don't like the energy, they don't like the feel, they don't like you wanted to retain creative like ownership and influence over something when maybe there was more financial opportunity if you gave that away, but that was important to you. It's a mark of progress. And I think that is something I want to see us measure ourselves against more. What can we step away from? Like physical situations, fights or whatever, you know what? You're right, you're tougher than me, but I'm going to wake up tomorrow.
Lots of the thing, when people talk about money or, respect, doing the deal sometimes could be deemed as respect or, what is the measure of respect? Okay, is it if I stand beside this thing or I do this thing, will people respect me that I'm successful because I've done it? Is that the respect you're looking for? Or is it, are you getting the inner, satisfaction?
I think it's when you don't value yourself as well. Because if you value yourself, you won't be looking for respect from other people. Like if you feel that someone can take your respect, you've disrespected me and I'm so offended. Well, if you had held value against yourself, you wouldn't feel like that. And I feel like growing up, a lot of, young boys would feel like that because they don't have a lot. So they'll have a respect over the postcode. They'll take ownership of something because they don't really own anything else. So I'm going to own, I don't know,
the postcode, this
CRO, whatever. You know what I mean? SE25. I'm going to take this. And if you step onto my block and you're not from here, you're disrespecting me because I don't own anything else. So I'm just going to take something. I'm going to place value on it.
Is it different for women? Do you think, Leash? Do you think women have that mentality?
The respect thing, I think a lot of it. I think they do, but I think it comes into play more so when dealing with men. Because there's that whole, misogynistic conversation. So it's, am I being respected by men? Am I seen in the meetings, in the boardroom? Is my opinion valued? Am I being heard? That sort of thing. That's the battle. Yeah.
By men.
By men, yeah.
Right, and so I guess it's the same kind of thing where if in those situations, if their sense of self-worth, security was at an all-time high, then that matters less. Right.
100%, yeah, I believe so. Because if you know yourself, regardless of whether or not someone sees you, you're still gonna just put your best foot forward. Right. If you're in there and if you're in that meeting and that one guy in there has made you feel a certain way to where you haven't performed, then you failed yourself, right? Because you could put that aside and say, okay, regardless of John, I'm still gonna put my best foot forward because there's 5 other people in this room and they're gonna listen to me, and John's gonna have to listen to me as well.
In the end, yeah.
When you're exposed to certain things and you just step out of your world, the learning that you get from it and the change, the life change, it's a completely, you see it. When boys start traveling, they have a different perception of the life. Even having a job, meeting other people, talking to people with different perspectives, you get to know we're not one person because we're from South London and we're black guys. We're not all meant to do the same thing. Yeah,
there's so much world. The world is a huge place, and you're an example of that. Like South London, all this amazing network that you put to such great use. Started in music and now in sports, which is such a tough space to be in. Like, why did you move from music into sports? What was the allure?
Having success in music for years, Dean, I've had a lot of relationships with some major sports people, right. You know what I mean? And so they've always been sports and music go hand in hand. So when I stepped out, lots of people that I've been watching on TV for years, they start becoming your friends. And I did sports science.
Okay.
I did sports science and football coaching, but I done like 2 years of it in
Oh,
Greenwich.
yeah?
But so I was always into sports. That was my first passion, sports. Yeah. So I wanted to get into I wanted to be an agent, but I was just in music
Right.
and I was successful in music, and I never found the time to dedicate in sports. And then sometimes when I did want to do it, some of the interactions that I did have with some athletes, especially footballers specifically, I just knew they wasn't ready for that type of representation. I don't think they were too, as much as they liked, seeing a young black male doing his thing and thinking, you know what, I would like you to help me. I don't think a lot of
They were
them could
truly
take.
ready.
They wasn't truly ready for that at the time.
But you've done it now, like
Yeah.
Disturbing the Peace.
Yeah, Disturbing
Sports.
Sports. Yeah.
Disturbing Sports Management
Yeah.
is now there.
Got the
It's doing
boxers.
its thing. And that's what it's mostly focused on at the moment. Right?
Yeah,
So,
Black Boys. And my thing is, again, everything I do, Dean, and this is, let it be known, like here, fundamentally from music, I've always been about pushing us as people forward. Like, it was always about changing the perception of who we are as black people. Tinie completely changed the perception of what it was to be young, black, and male from South London, and seeing what he could do. That was part of that. Even how I carried myself in terms of business and having a bit more, business acumen, and how I applied myself was very much consciously trying to change the narrative.
I know there is a passion of yours to do things among us,
Yeah.
for us, and you and me have talked about that a lot. But what we also talked about, and I talk about with my friends all the time, is like how that dynamic works out when it's among your friends and your people. Because now there's another, when it's someone you don't know, right? And this is what I found a lot. When it's someone you don't know, there's an element that you don't trust the person as much because you don't know them. But there's also a lot of comfort in that. If I don't know you and you do something I don't like, I just go, what are you doing? Why did
cut
you do
it,
that?
yeah.
I don't like that. Like, don't do that again. When it's you, like we're friends,
Yeah.
we're brothers. Now I'm talking to my wife, and I'm talking to my missus, I'm talking to my brother, and I'm going, Dumi's done this. How should I talk about it? Should I even mention it? I don't want to say it but it brings all these other dynamics into the business relationship, and we are in slightly different camps on this because you are very much, let's find a way to keep it among us, and I'm very much, let's let people earn a way to participate. We can give people opportunities, but everybody has to earn a way. And you are very kind of trusting, and who can we get around the table? Let's get them around the table and let's open it up for them. Let's make it for them. How can we adjust it so that they can be at the table? And I'm a bit, in business, I'm a bit more like, are they good? They do a good job. They've got a good pedigree.
Brother,
We're a bit different like that.
No.
But doesn't it, I actually know the answer. I know you've had difficulty even continuing to.
Can I interject here? Because I've got a point as well that's relevant to this and I wanted to ask, and I think it brings the two of you together. But I think that, general consensus is that there's like a gap between black elite and the urban scene. And I think you two collaborating together is just a key example of bridging that gap. But I think that's a huge part of it as well. Like, for example, in the music industry, a lot of artists, a lot of up and coming artists, they don't know business, they don't know how to represent themselves, they're getting bad deals and stuff like that. Whereas someone like yourself, Dean, from the business world, you understand business, you understand contracts, you understand how to commercialize, you understand how these things work, and likewise, so do you, Dumi. Like, how do you bridge that gap more? And along with what Dean said, opening up that trust, giving people a chance. What does that look like?
What my brother Dean's saying about people have to earn the right? I'm learning to look at things like that in a much more now. But previously, I'm not saying I do things in a charitable way, but one thing that very much my principle is you need to have the push, but you need a pull, innit? We don't have the opportunity. People say, well, he hasn't got the experience or she hasn't got the experience, so they can't get the job. How do we need to, lots of our white counterparts, Asian counterparts, they're able to provide the opportunity for their community and give them the experience, you know what I mean? And then it makes it easier for them to get a role.
Yep.
And my thing is, somebody that's just had an opportunity and been in a certain position, I've definitely sometimes been it's been nepotism to a certain degree, but having a level of favor for the people, our people, and sometimes it has let me down.
But we had a meeting once where
Yeah.
we were talking and we were like,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
arguing, but we were
Yeah,
kind
we're
of
going back and
debating
forth.
it a little
Yeah.
bit. And you were like, well, if I give, it was mind blowing to me. Like Dumi's thing was like, well, if I give someone an opportunity and they come in and they've learned from Dumi, they've learned from me, they've been in the environment. And basically what he said is, and then if they kind of screw me over, but they move on and do well elsewhere, I chalk it up to the game. Like he was like, yeah, I chalk it up to the game. And I go, but you provided that platform, you provided that meal, they ate. They shouldn't deal with you like that. And he was like, I know, but it happens. I prefer for it to, he used different words, I prefer for it to not happen. But he was saying in his position with his success and his platform, he feels like he has to do that. And I admire it so much. My view is I like to create a little space over here where I go, okay, I'll take some L's over here, providing the opportunities. But in the core things that I really care about, that I'm really invested in, I'm not accepting that. But Dumi, like I can't, even having a slightly different view on it, I respect it so much. And as an entrepreneur and a business owner, for you to say, I got 15 people who I know are ready, can do the job, you know, great experience and at it. And I'm ready to invest my own money in one or two who aren't quite there yet and give them the opportunity to come up, to grow. And the part of it that I think is most powerful is I'm ready to invest, support them and allow them to come up. And I even understand that they might move on before I'm ready for them to move on. They might take a client, they might take learning, they might do it at a moment that isn't right for the business. But if they go on and if they get on having been at my business, then that is...
Because you were never,
that's huge.
Dean, regardless if you talk to the person that put you on or you don't, what do? You remember them, don't
Of course.
Yeah, you do.
Of
Yeah.
course.
you? You always remember them.
Of course.
Everyone, I know the person that gave me my opportunity. I remember them.
Same.
So I remember that. And so regardless of what happens, any person that's I've fallen out with or they've done me wrong or they know.
They know that you put
And do you
them
know what it is as well? Like you said, another point to add to that, like those people that gave you those certain opportunities, like at that time, even though you were pursuing what you wanted to pursue, you might not have 100% had that belief within yourself, but that person that gave you the opportunity or that pushed you, it made you believe in yourself even more.
Yep.
So you do remember, of course.
But what's beautiful is he's doing it with his own money, his own company.
Yeah.
Right, so he's taking the risk to, if the person doesn't deliver, I've lost money. And if the person causes harm, they cause harm to my thing.
Oh,
to my,
Dean.
which is different to me. Like I run a company where I'm a shareholder, but it's owned by somebody else. So when it goes wrong, I have X% of the negative impact, but they have 80% of negative impact. That's not his situation. His situation is he has 99%.
And I respect that.
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's
huge.
And
that's
so,
it's a lot.
so when, like, you know, listen, like, if you think of it like that, and I hear some of the narrative that goes around sometimes, and sometimes people will know I'm not the type of person that I'm very professional. I'm very confidential. I'm not the type of person that's gonna go out and start washing my dirty linen outside. But if only you knew, and that's what I'm even trying to say, we need more entrepreneurs. We need more business people. We need more people that are leading their destiny, because the more people that do it, the more people that will understand what I've gone through.
100%.
Do you understand? But if it's only Dumi, that's why the thing is, when people talk about Severan, but we'll get into that, it's not about me.
Yeah.
This is about us. This is a product that I'm bringing out for us. Even the way I've structured the business, it's not about me. I've got partners. It's the first business that I've had partners. I've brought people in. It's my brother's thing. This is as much as Dean's as it is mine. And it's much for the community to change the perception of the community.
And that's what I say is the ultimate proof point, right? So people talk all the time. There's a lot of podcasts and press about lots of people's different views on things. And when Dumi talks about doing things that are inclusive and to help people get on, like he backs his talk, right? Because it's a. So I've always wanted to have an alcohol brand. I want to talk about how this came. Because I'm so proud and I'm gassed about this. Like there's like 20,000 Severan bottles in there. But like, I've always wanted to have an alcohol brand because I love our culture. Our culture is really music, clothes, and
booze,
celebrate and drinking. Right? It's that's really. And I love that, so I'm not being disrespectful to that. So I've always wanted to have an alcohol brand. And I even, at one point we were building this whiskey and a cognac, and I was in Wales tasting it and everything else. And I backed out because I knew I didn't have the reach to the culture to push it, right? I could get it made, I could get it branded, I could get it out, but I didn't have the reach into our culture to make it successful. And I was thinking maybe I can make it successful outside of our culture, but I was kind of like, no, I want it. And I realized I couldn't do it on my own. So I spent time, I actually spent money researching and putting something together. And then I abandoned it and put it down. So then Carl Loco had us both at this event, and we're sitting like in the green room just chatting and catching up. And Dumi's like, take a look at this and tell me what you think of it. And I'm like, and for a minute I'm like, oh God, like everywhere I go, like everyone's doing this. Right, so he sends me the deck. I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's a drink, like it's an alcohol brand. And then he does his Dumi thing, and we always do impressions of each other. He's like, here's a drink, it's gonna take over the world, and everyone needs to be drinking this, and I'm putting this one, and he starts like just going into Dumi mode about how this drink is gonna be the greatest ever thing. And I'm looking at it, and all I can see is something I've really wanted to do. And now I've got the person who could put it into the culture, who's behind it. So immediately I'm like, yes. But the main point of it is, you were kind of allowing people to come in at that time, and you had a structure about how people would come in. And I was like, look, I really want to be involved in it, but I'd love for the structure to be this way. And he was just like, all right, cool. We're just gonna make that make sense. We're gonna check with everybody else to make sure they're cool, and as long as they are, we're just gonna make that make sense so that you can participate. And for me, it was like to be a meaningful participant in it. I didn't want to be like an edge.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a bit more of a meaningful participant. And he was just, okay, yeah, cool. Let me just speak to everybody else, and we'll open that up, and we'll make it okay for you to come in like that. And I was a little bit like, oh, whoa, because like at that point,
giving you the chance that he's been talking about. Yeah.
No, but he is like he's actually giving me the chance, and he's opening it up in a way that means he gives a little bit more of what is his, to me. And to be clear, by the time we're having this conversation, it's not like, I was going to be the thing that pushed it forward or boosted it or made it happen. There was a bottle, there was drinks, there was grapes, there was production, there was marketing, there was a CEO. So he didn't open that up for me to be in it because he needed to. He opened it up for me to be in it because he wanted to. And when he says he believes in creating things that people can participate in, this isn't a real life actual example. And my participation in it at the end, when this is a huge success, and I don't know, like we sell it on, I will make more money from it as a result of the way he's allowed me to participate, right? And that because he's taken chips from his side of the thing and pushed them across to my side. And I don't see that a lot in business. Like that is testament to everything you've said so far about how you think about this.
Like, if we don't do things properly, things will never change. And we can always have these little pipeline genes that we need to work together, we need to do things together. But what makes us together? Do you know what I mean? I could have been like, oh, Severan, as you said, the bottle was designed. I had literally started to raise. We had production, we had everything designed, exactly what you said. But as much as you said, when you looked at the market, you were like, you didn't have your direct reach into the culture, right? But this relationship is the fuel of what Severan is. Mm-hmm. Like I can be saying I've bought a brand that I want to put ourselves at the forefront of luxury. And the timing, I even spoke to Carl about it. And I told Carl I gave Carl the deck. And then Carl was like, bruv, you know what, bro? This brother Carl, you need to take him for dinner though.
Yeah,
we owe him a dinner. So he's like, Dumi, he came and linked me straight away. He said, D, whatever you're doing, I'm in. Because if it's you, I know when you're doing something, I'm in. I was like, brother, go anyway, we're talking. And he's like, anyway, I'm doing a talk. Come do this, like, help me do that. And I'm going to do it all the time. And when I saw Dean was doing it, I was like, oh, you know what, me and Dean, I've never met Dean before. And I'll meet him there. And I didn't have any intention to like go, oh, listen, mate, I've got, and it was only we were vibing. And then obviously our mutual friend, Leon was there, who's his brother. And obviously me and Leon know each other. So it was a little bit of an icebreaker. It's easier, isn't it? You know, like when you meet someone, it was easier because Leon kind of connected us. Right. So then we're talking. And then when I was like, in my deck, I've been talking about, I've put so much imagery about black success, families, successful people. And I'm like, we're two boys that have literally come from the same shit and we've been successful. Bidin is the epitome of the opposite side of what I'm doing. It's not entertainment. But look, if you look at him, he's got all the things that all the rappers want. You've done it in a corporate way. And I love, that's everything to me. Like, for me, I've just done everything that sometimes it frustrates me that everyone wants to get into music and wants to do entertainment and wants to do that. Because I'm like, we can do more. We're more than that. And I believe, to be honest with you, I am more than that. But I've used entertainment to the foundation, because that's what I could do at the time. But so I've always tried to push that narrative, like we can do more, we can do more. So when me and Dean are meeting up, we're talking about stuff, and I'm like, this is a brother that's done well, and I could talk to him about business. Plus, we obviously all both spend a shitload of money on champagne. You know what I mean? Because it's our lifestyle. So Dean needs to be involved.
All right. So this is your idea from creation and inception. But how did it come about? What was the thought process behind it?
So on Sundays, I always get the Sunday Times. So I read certain things and it tells you about trends and things that's happening. And then I read that lots of people were starting to have vineyards in UK, in Kent and Hampshire. So I was like, oh. A year after, I saw that we started to win awards in wine, like winemaking, and then the UK sparkling wine was starting to win amazing awards, and the wine was actually competing with champagne in France and winning, and that the champagne companies were starting to buy land in the UK because of the juice that was being made, like the yield of juice that was being produced in their vineyards was reducing. Like, it wasn't as much because of climate change, and it wasn't just as good, but because of the climate change in the UK, it's becoming a bit warmer. We've actually got the perfect climate for grapes. And so then I'm like, okay, British sparkling wine. With me and Tinie, we was stop working together in a management capacity. So I'm thinking in my head, I've got a bit of time. I've got space in my mind, in my head. You know what I mean? So I was like, I want to do this. I'm going to do this wine. I'm going to do a sparkling wine, because then I was like, Rosé Bel Air is sparkling wine, but people think it's champagne, right? Ciroc is not real vodka, but it's Ciroc. I was like, we need our own brand.
Yeah. Ace of Spades wasn't champagne when it started out.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know what I mean? So then I was just like, you know what? I'm going for it. So then I just started putting the mood board together and putting the imagery together. And it first started, I wanted to do a rosé for women. It first started like that. Because I was like, I wasn't seeing black hands, female hands, chinging. I just thought that imagery of female hands chinging, I just thought that was like powerful. I'm a very image focused. I don't know how to explain. I can see things through campaigns. Like, it's a campaign for me. So then when I started putting the Severan thing together, it was like images. And then I was like, at first I came up with a name. It was like 11. It was called 11 at first. And I just liked 11 because I like the name 11. I like the way it flows.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, can I get a bottle of 11? Or I like 11. So I was just like, these other things. I just put things in my head, you know what I mean? I was like 11. I was like, okay, maybe we can do 11. I remember I was doing it. And then I stumbled across the story of Septimius Severus.
Yeah.
Septimius Severus was a black Roman emperor
Yeah.
that conquered Europe, and obviously his territory was what is the city of London now. Yeah. And so when I saw that story, I was like, wow, no one knows about this. And I was like, I'm going to call it Severus.
Right.
And then I told my partner at the time, I was like, let's call it Severus. And then he was like, and I wanted to call it like Severus, like 11 Severus or something like that. He's like, no, Dumi, that's 7-11. And you know the way Matt is, like, Matt just stay. I was like, yeah. It's like, okay, so like, cool.
When I first read that, actually, about the name as well, the first thing that stood out to me, I'm a big Harry Potter fan, and it's one of the professors from Harry Potter is Severus Snape, so I was like, yeah, Severus would have people would have thought
People did tell me that after. Yeah, HP. Lots of people did say that to me. So then when I wanted to call it Severus, and then we went to do the trademarking, and someone had already taken Severus. I was like, oh man. Then I started reading his story, and then it said he had a dynasty called the Severan dynasty, and that was his 3 sons like led after him. I was like, that's even deeper.
That's even better.
Because it's a dynasty, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a legacy.
And Severan is set. I was like, Severan. So we registered it. And then it's like, remember, Romans drank wine. Even if vineyards, they've been processing wine and bottling wine from the Roman times. It being led to us that it was a, let's say, wherever people can question or argue, was he black? He was a man of race. Do you know what I mean? He was North African. He was an African of race. Them times BC in the UK. You know what I mean? They were probably drinking wine, right? So then that gives us the legacy and the history, you know, and it gives me a little bit of a story.
Then you had the moment with the grapes, because I remember you saying like I couldn't even, you couldn't find the grapes, and then suddenly. Yes,
he didn't even look. It's so funny. It's like weird. So then, when we started looking for the grapes and looking for the process, we had to start. I was going to vineyards and stuff, and we were figuring out, because we needed somebody that could produce a certain amount of bottles. I can't get investors and tell people that we're going to market, but we can only do about 5,000 bottles a year. That's not a business. So we need someone that can do 30,000 up, right? So then when we were going through the process, we were tasting them. My whole thing about the palate of the drink was very much about it had to taste. I would say our entry taste was like a verve cliqueur. That was like at least the taste, because I thought that is an entry taste. That I don't think no one says it's bad. No one doesn't, but people do love it, but no one's like, I hate that.
No,
you know
I love Verve. It's
exactly,
one of my
Verve
favorite champagnes.
No, it is like so, and it's better than Moet, and it's not a Dom P. Yeah. It's not even a low imperial. It's like, you know what I mean. It's just perfect, class wise. And so when we were doing the tasting, we had the Verve and we had a blind we had our blind taste test. Actually, I need to reverse that. Before that, so then about yield, I was like, shit, we're not going to be able to do it. I've got the name, got everything, but we can't get any grapes or volume. So I was like, where else in the world does grapes, wine? I was like, South Africa. Anyway, when we're doing the blind test, we put in our, like, okay, this one's nice, this one's nice. The one that was the best, we were like, we like this one. And then she goes, oh, dude, you know what, guys? This is actually a wild card. The producer, these grapes are from South Africa. I was like,
it was meant to be.
This is destiny.
This is it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So then that's how it happened. But then I wouldn't even tell you the process of, even then you have to go to the person who produces it and talk to the farmers. So then I'm on the phone Skyping South African farmers, and they're obviously passionate about the process. And so we actually nearly lose it.
Right.
So it's like a roller coaster.
You nearly lose it because we want to bring it to the UK.
Yes, you know what I mean? And they're like, they have a very specific way.
Right.
You know, these are artists and these are people that spend their lives trying to make a wine. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's very specific. Obviously, at that point, they're thinking, are you the best person for this? Will you actually respect our process? Do you understand what we've done? Do you understand how hard it is for us to get to this point? Are you just going to come in, think you're going to buy these amount of bottles and you're not going to
bottle it up.
You bottle it up and
Right.
just throw. So I remember like the pitch then, it was like, what's that movie when they say, you can't handle the truth? No, it was the perfect. A Few Good Men. It was like perfect. And she's like, I love you, D. Like switched. But it was so important. And I just think, to be honest with you, the whole process has been a beautiful process. We've literally, just at the start, there's going to be so many layers. There's so many things that we can do. What I actually am excited about more than ever, I can connect with as many people as I possibly can through the wine. It can be part of everyone's life. It's everybody's. You know what I mean? So on any level, we can connect. In Dean's world, this is Dean's brand. He can embed it in his world, in his corporate world, in his lifestyle. At the end, there's a lot of things that you probably haven't even seen, where I've got things that Dean wouldn't even know the things that I have in my head, that I feel that Severan can fuel that for him, and that will show a different side of Dean for myself, for yourself. There's so many things that I feel we haven't been able to do, that by the grace of God, as far as we continue selling a few bottles and we keep it going, we're going to be able to do all of that. And I just really, I can't wait to be able to do all the things. It'll just start, once people start seeing like chapter 1, I think everybody will be like, okay, this is important for us.
I'm a proud investor and supporter of a business that Dumi has founded and started and allowed me to be part of. And I don't need it to be my thing. I don't need to be the kingpin of it. I don't need to be the face of it. Not at all. And I think in there is everything that I hope more of us do and become.
I think in both of you and Dan as well, who I met, I think, and the brand, it speaks for itself. It's Black British excellence. Everything that you guys stand for, everything that we've spoken about, and it's the conceptualization of Severan. It's in the bottle.
We're all in that bottle, but made in Africa,
born in the UK,
born in the UK.
And the thing is, another thing I wanted to say, I want to laugh because I just thought about it now. Yeah, the thing that I always say about Dean is that he's P&L, profit and loss. Yeah, he's profit and loss. I'm passion and love.
I love that.
You know what?
Yeah.
It's a combination.
It's a good combination. Yeah.
He's full of that. No. Do you know what? I was thinking about it today, but too much of both is no good. But balance of both makes a perfect partnership. And respect, man. And the thing is, like, thank you, Dean, for being part of this 100%. Journey. Hopefully this is one of many things that we do together. I hope that this creates a ripple effect for our culture, for them to know that no matter where we are in our journey, we can always collaborate and we can always come together and we can always learn. You know what I mean? And we're only stronger together. And so, thank you, brother.
100%.
Thank you for having me.
Severan, check it out. We're in that bottle. This bottle is us. Born in Africa, finished in Britain. Thank you.